Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you on this, uh, in my case, stormy Tuesday, up here in Superior, Wisconsin. So hopefully it's better weather where you are. I just want to say thank you for joining us today for session 3 of 4 of our Conversations That Matter training. I'm Urbanado, Senior Program Coordinator with the Delta CCC team. Before we get started, I just have a couple housekeeping items. If you haven't done so already, please turn on your video and eventually we'll test out your mic. And to avoid any background noise, do keep yourself muted. But when you want to unmute yourself to chat or answer anything, simply select the microphone icon in the lower left corner of your screen. And then we encourage questions and discussion. So please unmute your line or utilize the chat box that is located in the bottom ribbon. We also encourage the use of the phrase "I'm complete" to indicate when you are finished speaking. And if you have any technical issues today, please reach out in the chat box. I'm happy to help, but I know Megan would also be happy to help. And then our purpose, the National Rural Health Resource Center, or the Center for short, is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to sustaining and improving healthcare in rural communities. The center has served rural hospitals, clinics, and other providers nationwide for over 25 years in the following core areas: transition to value and population health, collaboration and partnership, performance improvement, health information technology, and workforce. The Delta Regional Authority and the Health Resources Services Administration's Federal Office of Rural Health Policy have partnered to support the Delta Region Community Health Systems Development Program. Through a cooperative agreement with the federal office, the center administers the program and manages the provision of services to the selected hospitals and communities. Services are provided through technical assistance, which includes various assessments, on-site consultations, action planning, and coaching implementation of best practices and adoption of key transition strategies. Building a culture where difference is valued. The center is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism. We create an environment that reflects the communities we live in and serve, a place where everyone feels accepted and empowered to be their full, authentic selves and where everyone belongs. We do have a little bit more on our website if you want to check it out. And then just before I hand it over, I am going to launch our pre-polling. So you should see that pop up with 2 questions. And then I need 11-ish of you for that. All right, Hugh Life, take it away.
Good morning. It's good to see you all again. We're going to do quite a bit of review today, and we're going to get you back into practicing. So we've talked about that a lot, about how we want this kind of be hands-on. We want you to be able to walk away and able to use these tools. Today, we're going to also have our rural health staff. Karen is going to be leading us through some of these activities. So we're going to shake it up a little bit today. But with that, let's kind of walk backwards in our mind and remember when we were together last time. So we introduced the framework, right? We talked about conversations that matter. And we then in the last session, we reviewed that framework. We had you work together to craft a conversation on the fly. You guys did an amazing job. We were really, really pleased with you. We're going to talk a little bit about how that felt when you were put on the spot to have to do it and deliver it. So yeah, these conversations were delivered by our guest facilitators and held with the larger group. And again, we really want to express our gratitude to those guest facilitators who stepped into that space, who were brave enough to do that and help us to experience this framework. So thank you. We also touched on grounding ourselves in our purpose, right? Do you remember we talked about our rational experiential aims? And what the purpose of that is, how it's the guardrails how it sets the scope for the conversation, and really, really intentionally identifies what our purpose is. So today we're going to dig a little deeper into that and focus on identifying our rational experiential aims. And again, understanding how this really sets the context, the scope, and the structure of your conversation. So with that, just a little bit of a reminder about conversations that matter. So the conversation that matters framework really creates that setting for meaningful group discussions. And again, remember, we really talked about how the purpose of the ORID, the focus conversation, is really to build that shared understanding. So we want groups to have discussions where participants share diverse perspectives and in a mutually respectful, non-confrontational manner. So the framework really helps people to collaboratively share those insights, creative ideas on a topic, an issue, what are their shared experiences around that understanding, and creating an opportunity for people to really broaden their perspectives. So when I hear from you, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste, now I have a broader understanding of the data that we're all responding to. So with that, let's remind ourselves what our objectives are for our time together today. And so could I get someone to give voice to our 4 objectives?
I will. Oh, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Learning objectives. Gain confidence in developing rational and experiential aims and outlining the experience participants will have. Learn how an intake form can help you design a focused conversation and gain confidence in using one. Increase skill in designing a focused conversation using conversations that matter framework. Identify opportunities to apply the focused conversation method to community champion responsibilities.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. Helping us get started for the day. All right. So what is our time together going to look like today? So we're going to kind of, like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of reflection and kind of reviewing what we already have been through. So we're going to take time to, do some introductions. We're going to do some reflections. You guys, again, are going to get an opportunity to really practice developing those rational and experiential aims. We're going to give you a break, not to worry. And then take it through to tips and hints, and we're going to have you demo. We're going to, center staff is going to demo, and then we're going to have you practice. So, and with that, we'll take some time to wrap it up, and we may or may not get out of here a little bit early, depending on how it goes. So we're going to play that one by ear. But with that, I am going to ask, we're going to do a go round. And I'm going to ask you again to state your name and one thing that you remember from the previous sessions about the conversations that matter framework. So your name and your role. So, all right, let's do that. Names and one thing that you remember. I'm going to do Nikki, Erica, and Leah.
Nikki Williams, one thing that I remember about our last session for Conversation That Matters is that it is just as important to listen than it is to speak.
Thank you, Nikki. Erica, Leah, and Tara.
My name is Erica Ladette, and one thing that I remember from last week I'm going to say is take time to, I guess just as Nikki said, take time to listen and not be so quick to respond just because somebody has finished, allow other people the opportunity to speak as well.
All right. Thank you, Leah. Tara, Helena, and Tabitha.
Good morning. Name is Tara Herbie. One thing I learned from our last conversation is, trying to think, in a minute. Learning how to, I guess, choose the right question to ask when you're doing trying to come up with learning how to ask the right questions. I'm gonna say that, just learning how to ask the right question.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Tara. It's all good. Helena, Tabitha, and Kelly.
So Helena Wolf, and the thing that I took away, obviously, with having the chance to lead the productive meeting was just, being able to know the right questions to ask to pull the information out of people. So and just having those in our tool belt is just a really great thing. So appreciate that.
Great. All right. Thank you, Helena. Tabitha, Kelly, and Grayson.
Good morning. My name is Tabitha Jones, and one thing that I learned in last week's session was how to become an effective listener.
Kelly, Grayson, and Kelsey.
My name's Kelly. Last week I still learned, and I'm still learning about the facilitator role and also listening, like you said, but learning the difference between facilitating, leading, and all of that.
Grayson, Kelsey, and Stacy.
Good morning, my name's Grayson. One of the things that stuck out for me last week was being able to set up a meeting effectively to kind of guide the conversations and go in and have a plan.
Thank you, Grayson. Kelsey, Stacy, and Precious.
Good morning. I'm Kelsey Mashburn. One thing that I remember and learned from the last meeting was how to put how to categorize the correct questions into the correct levels of a conversation. So the right questions in the ORID method.
All right. Thanks, Kelsey. Stacy, and then Precious.
Good morning. My name's Stacy Dozot, and I think my takeaway from last week was the difference between actually facilitating a meeting and running a meeting, because they are a little bit different. I'm complete.
And then Precious, wrap us up.
Precious Fritz, and I remember last week that preparation is key.
Okay. And did I miss anybody?
Leah.
Leah.
No worries. I get missed a lot. It's okay. I think basically what I took away from it was being sure to make sure everyone is recognized and that their opinion matters.
Excellent. Perfect way to wrap it up, Leah. Thank you. All right. So now I'm going to ask you to think a little broader than where we were at just last week, and take kind of that foundational understanding that you have for how a conversation works, what the conversation that matters framework is, or something similar. But where have you recognized or feel like you have seen that being used around you? And anybody can pop in here.
I'll go first. I kind of saw it last week. We had a board meeting, and I really focused and listened to the questions that they were asking and made sure, that they kept the meeting flowing and just being asked in the correct order to have a progressive meeting.
Where else have folks seen this, or something they feel is similar?
I know that we had a maternity health community conversation, and I observed that format used, how she kept the conversation with the audience engaged. So it was very informative.
Did any of you try to use the tool since we've been together last?
No, but I'm a little nervous because I have my community connect on next week.
Okay. Well, you're with good company. Did anybody else give it a shot that would be willing to share?
No, but I did experience it honestly at a doctor's appointment. And I didn't even realize it was so funny because I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him, and you know how they walk out the room, and I was like, is that like a framework? Because he literally came in with a plan and it was kind of following the same steps. So surprisingly.
Well, I worked at Madison College, which is our community college here in Wisconsin, for 18 years. And when I left, we were training nursing students to use this framework as an interview method with patients. So it is a really versatile tool. So now that you've had a little bit of time to sit with this framework, and I realize it hasn't been a long time, so, you know, we were just together, but anybody can answer this. What about this framework really appeals to you?
I'll go. So I like the framework because it helps you, like, you're prepared for what you're going to talk about. And to me, it'll help like keep the conversation flowing. I'm complete.
Anyone
I
else?
kind of agree with that. It's just like, it's like a key for you to look at. Like if you're stuck, you have examples that you can use, like she said, to keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah, the structure helps to let you know how to lead it and where you're missing things so that you don't overlook things.
Yeah. Where do you still have some anxiety or some confusion about the framework?
Believe it or not, I am doing fine. Mine is has gotten much better.
I think mine's just, you know, like when you're in there and not forgetting what you learned, like, you know, just the questions. And I think it'll be good to probably have a cheat sheet, maybe just, you know, that you can refer to. Because, you know, when you're in a front of a lot of people, it can be nerve wracking, and just, you know, so you're not forgetting the important questions about how to pull that information out. So.
It's about being, you know, intentional and being prepared. And I want to point out too that those cheat sheets we refer to are those templates with the questions that are in your Conversation That Matters workbook. So it is a great resource for you. What have you noticed about, you know, the practice sessions that we went through, and maybe for those of you who shared stories about where you've experienced it or seen this, how did people respond to the questions when they were asked?
In our group, they were not really hesitant. I didn't have to poke and prod people to continue the conversation. It just kind of flowed, which was very helpful.
I feel like we picked the right questions for the conversations to keep flowing. We didn't pick just like a stagnant question, and so it was able to kind of keep it going.
And I think that picking the correct questions is really matters when you're engaging with a group, because I think that you have to really just scout out what type of group that you're working with, because you have to feel the room.
And that's going to be a lovely segue, Tabitha, to the work that rural health staff is going to do with you in a little bit. So having thought about what our experience has been together here as a group, some of the things that you heard about what people have experienced outside of this group, what we shared with you about the framework. So my question is, what do we need to consider when we're setting up a conversation so that people answer the question that is asked rather than jumping levels? Remember, we want to take people on a journey. So what do we, what can we do to get people to answer those questions?
I would think to just make it not so open-ended, because then you get a lot of stuff thrown in and it's going to be hard to weed out what you really need to attack.
What else do we need to consider?
Do you have to know the crowd, know the audience?
Oh, your audience, yeah. Anything else that anybody feels like we need to consider?
I guess I would say really focus on the direct question instead of veering off from that question, because one answer can answer multiple different questions, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you'll see people start to move between those levels. Yeah. So as part of, setting up those conversations, we talked a bit last week about those rational aims, right? The rational experiential aim and really the significance of that. And so with that, Travis is going to walk you through a deeper understanding of the rational experiential aim.
Thanks, Jill. Now, sometimes we call this conversation method the focused conversation method. And what I like about that name is it implies that we're going to have a conversation that's not going to just go all over the place. It has a particular set of goals and objectives in mind. So that's what we're going to be talking about as we get into what the rational and experiential aims are. We're going to start with the rational aim, and that's what when we think about, what is the purpose of our meeting? What is the purpose of our conversation? This is sort of that purpose, the kind of thing that we think of when we think of the purpose of a meeting. We're here to make a decision. We're here to learn some more about a topic, to gain a deeper level of understanding, or maybe we're here to craft a proposal. So that kind of tangible outcome of the conversation, that's the rational and the rational aim, what we want the group to know, understand, or decide. And so there's some questions on the slide there in front of you to kind of help you think about this. What is our intent for this conversation? What's the desired outcome that we want? What do we want to accomplish with this conversation? What's our objective? Those are some other ways to get you to think about the rational aim. The other goal we talk about is the experiential aim. And this is something we often forget when we're thinking about the purpose of the meeting. And this is what is the experience we want the group to have as a result of this conversation? How do we want this group to be different at the end than they were at the beginning? And so we might think about, what connections do we want them to make? How do we want them to be changed as a result of this conversation? How do we want them to feel? Maybe we want them to feel that they've been heard, that their contributions have been valued. Maybe we want the group to leave that conversation feeling energized or feeling confident about the task that's ahead of them. Maybe we want them to feel supported or relieved about something or intrigued about something. So thinking about that internal experience of the participant, of the group as a whole. So that this is something we don't often think about when we craft a conversation or a meeting, but being able to clarify that experience that we want those participants to have can help us do a better job of crafting the kinds of questions, the kind of conversation that we're going to facilitate with that group. To get us thinking about this a little bit more practically, we're going to do a little exercise with you. We're going to do it as a large group first, and then we'll move into some small groups. So we're going to give you a hypothetical scenario here to think about. So imagine that we are being asked to come in and debrief with a group after a fire that happened at a daycare. Nobody was hurt. Everybody is safe. We are being asked to sort of come in and have this conversation to process what has happened. And so we want to think about who our intended audience is going to be. Who are the participants that are going to be involved in this conversation? So as you think about this particular scenario, what are kind of the basic stakeholder groups who would be affected that we might want to have that conversation with? Just shout them out.
Parents, teachers.
Yep. Who else?
The students,
The
or the
student.
kids at the daycare.
Yep. Probably the group that's going to be most easily overlooked. Good to be mindful that we want to have that conversation with students. Who
The
else?
teachers, providers.
Yep. The staff, the providers. Yep. Who else?
Media.
First responders.
First responders. Exactly. So those are the four kind of groups that we're going to be talking about. We're going to work through one of these as a large group. And then in small groups, you'll be doing this the other groups as well. Here, I'm going to share my screen. So in a little bit, you'll be working in this Google Doc. We're going to together as a large group look at the staff, thinking about having a conversation with just the staff, the administrators, the care providers. What would we want that group to know or understand or decide as a result of this conversation?
Travis, do you want me to scribe for you?
Oh, sure. That'd be great, Jill. Thanks.
Right. So we would know or understand would be like what caused the fire and how we can, what measures we can take to prevent further issues.
Exactly. What caused the fire? What can we do in the future to prevent this from happening again?
Maybe an exit plan for the kids to get out of the building.
Oh yeah, making sure that we have proper evacuation procedures. We might not have needed them in this particular instance, but they, it'd be important for us to know what to do in the event that we need that in the future. What about experiential aim? How do we want the staff to feel different at the end of this conversation than at the beginning?
Be more aware.
Yeah. Want them to feel more aware of what their next steps are, of what happened. What else?
Yeah, I guess just them to be confident in how to move forward.
To feel confident that if this happens again, they know exactly what is expected of them, what their role is, what the proper procedures are. What else?
I don't know how to say it, but I guess before fires and stuff happen, you kind of prepare. And so kind of show them that, hey, this is what we prepared for.
Yeah.
I don't know how to
feel, yeah. We'll want them to feel prepared. Want them to feel like they know what to do when this happens, if this happens again. Yeah, exactly. Yep, you got it. So in a little bit, we're going to break you into small groups. You're going to be looking, each individual group is going to do the same thing we just did with the staff, thinking through what do we want this outcome of the conversation to be. You're going to be talking through that for the first responders, for parents, and for the kids. So each group is going to be working on just one of those stakeholder groups, thinking through these questions that we just did as a large group. And then we'll come back and debrief this in a little bit.
So the Google Doc is in the chat. So you can either all open the Google Doc, you could have one person open the Google Doc and share it in your small group, however you want to do it, but then you can type directly into that document. So room 1 will be first responders, room 2 will be parents, and room 3 will be the kids.
Yep.
And it's going to put you into breakout rooms.
Yep, and we're going to you'll have a trainer in there to help you as well. So Travis, you're in group 1, so you will have the first responders. Jill, you're in room 2, so you will have the parents, and then everyone else, if you don't get pulled into a breakout room, don't worry, you're going to stay in the main group with me as we talk through rational experiential aims for the kids and the students. So we're just going to take 5 minutes total to do this. So we'll see you back soon. And then Karin and Robbie, are you okay hanging out in here with us, or did you want me to open another room for you two?
I am okay hanging out in here.
Yeah,
awesome. All right, Tabitha, Leah, Kelsey, and hi, Erica. We are going to talk about the rational experiential aim for the kids. So let me share my screen here. And I am fine with typing for us if you all want to just jump right in and start talking about what is that rational aim. So what do we want for these kids? Remember, preschool, so they're little. What do we want for them to know, understand, or decide?
Understand that they're going. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Understand that they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, safety.
And that's maybe a little bit, you know, we want them to know that, you know, maybe the building is safe, but we want them to feel safe as well, right? So that goes a little bit into that experiential aim. But what else do they need to know and understand?
That it wasn't their fault.
What caused?
Yeah. So what caused the fire? That it wasn't their fault. What else might be important for these kiddos?
That no one was hurt.
Okay.
How to exit or where to exit the building if that needs to take place.
Yeah, so the safety protocols and procedures, right? So where and how to exit. Anything else? What about, let's say there was an evacuation that took place, right? So this might fall into the line with the safety protocols and procedures, but if it were me, I might want to review with them what they did really well when the fire broke out and what they would need to maybe do differently next time. What do you all think?
So
I
like
agree.
reassurance.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and then from that experiential aim, so again, here's Not so much that goal or purpose of what we want them to know, understand, or decide, but how do we want them to really feel as a result of this conversation? How do we want them to walk away differently? So we want them to feel safe.
Calm, confident.
Oops. All right. Calm and confident. Okay.
Prepared.
How might we want them to feel towards the staff and the school?
Trustworthy.
Yeah, we want them to have trust in their teachers and the staff that they're going to continue to ensure their safety. Absolutely. All right, we've got folks coming back. All right, we should have everyone back. So Travis, I'll just leave my screen up here.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So we've talked a little bit about having these individual conversations. If we were having this conversation with all of these people in the same room, how might this conversation be a little bit different? What might our rational aims be? What do we want this group to know, understand, or decide? If we've got everybody in the same room.
Well, should we hear maybe just real
Oh,
quickly
yes.
report out what each of these individual conversations look like?
Yep, thank you. Let's hear just some highlights from your conversations in your small groups.
How about starting with the first responders? Who was in that group? Who could just give us a quick report out on your rational and experiential aim?
Well, I was in the first group, room 1. We come up with where the fire started, exit strategies to get the kids out safely, make sure everybody's accounted for once you get everybody outside, and seeing what preventions what can they do to prevent this in the future. And then how the responders should feel afterward is confidence in responding in time, confidence in speaking to the staff, trying to reassure them that they did everything they need to do during the fire, their confidence in their ability to prevent it in the future, making sure it doesn't happen again, put things in place like training staff to know what to do and do fire drills and things like that, and better understand the process in the daycare.
All right, awesome job. Virtual applause for the first responder group. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts on that? Just open it up. All right. Now moving on to the parents group. Who is in there that could give us a quick report out? So if you were with Jill, don't be shy.
So we talked about if the kids or staff are properly prepared, what the next steps in prevention would be, and how would the emotional aspect of the situation be addressed, and honestly, what happened. And then on the other side, we talked about assuring the proper protocol and prevention steps have been taken, and inspiring confidence that the children are safe and confidence in the staff.
All right, virtual applause and celebration for the parents team. Thank you so much, Grayson, for your report out. Yeah, any other questions or thoughts from anyone else for this group? All right, moving right along. And then for those of you that were in the kids discussion, one of you please share out the rational and experiential aim for this conversation.
I'll do it.
Thanks, Kelsey.
We wanted to make sure that the kids knew that they were safe, what caused the fire, that it wasn't their fault, that no one was hurt, safety protocols and procedures, what they did well and what to do differently next time. And then we wanted them to feel safe, calm and confident, prepared, and then trustworthy in their staff.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelsey. So any additional thoughts or questions from anyone for this conversation with the kiddos? All right, not hearing any. So now, Travis, what might be different with the full group? Why don't you walk us through?
Yeah, what might be different about our rational aim and experience? Or, well, let's just start with our rational aim. What might be different there if we've got all of these stakeholder groups in the same room and we're trying to have one big conversation?
Just the first of all important thing would be that everyone was safe. I think that's, whether I think everybody would want to hear that or know that. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Is rational considered like less, I don't want to say less feelings, but it's more about the facts of what happened? Or no?
Yeah, probably what we want them to know certain things, understand certain things. Yeah, I think that would be a helpful way of thinking about it. Yeah.
We want them to know how the fire was started. And also the time it took for, certain things to happen, like responders to get there. So the details.
Yep.
Also to know that the staff protected the children like they were supposed to do, and the protocols that they have in case that happens.
Yeah. We've got all these people in the same room, a bunch of adults, and then some kids. Whose voice is likely to get drowned out in there?
The kids.
The kids.
Yeah. So being mindful of that, we might want to make sure that this is more probably moving into experiential aim. We want to make sure that particularly the kids feel like they've had an opportunity to be heard and to express their own feelings. What else? What might we want this big group to how might we want them to feel different at the end of this conversation than at the beginning?
Feel more confident and better prepared for if this happens again.
Yeah, feel confident, better prepared. What else?
And that the staff actually has a plan.
That the staff has a plan.
And we would like the parents to know that their children are safe and and trustworthy with the staff.
Yeah, we want people to be reassured that the kids are going to be safe. Yeah.
I think maybe being positive in the fact that because no one was hurt, that everybody did their jobs well and everybody responded well. That positive reinforcement sometimes better than just pointing out maybe things they did wrong.
Yeah, thank you. If we're coming into this conversation as facilitators and we have all of these groups in the room, how might the mood in that room be different if this is the fourth time this has happened versus if that's the first time this has happened?
Angry parents.
Yeah.
Why does this keep happening?
Yeah.
A lot of frustration.
Yeah, we're going to be preparing for a very different conversation if it's the fourth time around than if it's the first time around. So those are all things that play into our preparation as facilitators, is understanding who are the people in that room, understanding, is this the fourth time this has happened or is it the first time that's happened? Because that conversation that we're going to facilitate is going to look different if it's the fourth time versus if it's the first time. There's going to be a lot of tension and frustration in that room that we're going to want to make sure that we create space for processing versus if it's just the first time. So, yeah.
So Travis, how can you do that?
What's that?
If this is the fourth time this happened, how can you maintain a calm environment for this group of people, especially with the parents and assuring the students?
Yeah, good question. I'll throw that back to the group. What would your thoughts be? How would you enter into this conversation differently and try and make sure that you maintain some calm and some structure for this conversation, knowing that that's going to be frustrating for people?
I would think the first thing would be to reassure the parents that none of the children were injured and that they were taken care of.
I think
But we have
acknowledging
in
the
front of parents, so it's like, I don't want to hear that. You know, this is the fourth time. So I'm already upset. So I don't want to hear nothing about insurance because you already had your protocol. We went over this. So this keep occurring. So I'm saying this is a tack that they will actually do.
Yeah.
So
I would say first to just acknowledge the fact that, you know, I know that it's been, or we know that this has happened 4 times, and also go in this meeting with a game plan. You know, maybe prior to this meeting, you know, maybe call a smaller meeting with key stakeholders, the fire marshal, the school superintendent, those stakeholders, to come up with a plan. That way, you know, because obviously something is happening where this, you know, that's sparking this fire, whether it's a building issue or, you know, whatever it is. So just go in it with a plan and be prepared to report the plan to the parents. I am complete.
And with all of that, what I would say is this gets a lot to each of those different levels and how much time we spend at some of those levels, right? So at that first level, that O level, that objective level, that's going to be your opportunity to really make sure that we are all talking about the same facts. So you know how rumor mills go, right? And people heard this and they heard that. So that is your first opportunity to build that shared understanding about what we're talking about. If this is the 4th time that something's happened, you're going to probably spend a lot more time at that emotive level. You're going to give people time to process through it. What worked? What didn't work? Where were you concerned? Where are you still concerned? You know, what do you feel like went well? Where do you still feel confident? But you're going to spend, when it's an emotional situation like that, you're going to plan more time at that level. And so depending on the topic, it's not like we do 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Sometimes it's the data that really needs a lot of time. It's a really heavy, intense report. We're going to give people a lot of time to process through the data part of it. If your goal with the meeting is to do brainstorming, we're looking for solutions. You're probably going to spend more time at that eye level. So I don't want you to think that this is just a straightforward ask 1 or 2 questions, 1 or 2 questions, 1 or 2 questions, and it's all equal. So as planning these conversations, think about who your audience is, which you've already said. What is the significance? So we're looking at that rational experiential aim, and then you're going to adjust your questions, your flow of questions, and your timing around that. So sometimes just the way you address it is with more time.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Yeah, if we know we've got 30 minutes for this conversation, how we spend that 30 minutes is going to look different depending on what the goals for this conversation are. Are we going to want to spend more time giving facts? What happened? What do we know about the situation? Or like Jill said, are we going to want to spend more time giving people some space to process their anger, their frustration? To spend time really thinking about how are we going to make sure that this does not happen again. So how you manage that time is going to be different depending on what your goals for the conversation are, which is partly why thinking about the rational and experiential aims is so important. It's going to help not only tell you what questions you need to ask, but what level in that conversation you need to spend more time on. What questions do you have so far? All right. Well, we've got a little bit of a break for you coming up. And then when we come back, I think center staff have something to walk you through. Oh, when are we back here?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. All right. Thank you.
So yeah.
Hang on. Let's be back at 3 minutes past the hour. And then before handing it over to center staff, we will run through some tips and hints for you around rational and experiential aim before we get into a design intake template. So take your 10 minutes. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Megan.
All right, Travis.
All right, thanks, Megan. So we're going to just briefly look at some tips and hints, things to think about as you are designing conversations, things to keep in mind for the importance of your rational and experiential aims. One of those is knowing why you are engaging with your particular audience. Are you wanting input from that group? Are you wanting maybe just some constructive criticism or feedback from that group? Are you wanting more of a collaborative relationship for whatever your topic is or your proposal is? Are you wanting them to partner more closely and be co-creators of something as you are going forward? Maybe it's a project or an initiative. So knowing why you are engaging that stakeholder group is important. And being transparent about your intent. I'm sure nothing is more frustrating for people than when they're asked for their input and they think that they're being part of something only to discover that really they were just being informed of a decision that was already made. And so that may be people's experience of doing participatory methods in the past. And so as you are engaging with them, there may be some trust building that has to happen. And so as we think about knowing your audience, who needs to be involved, what are their needs, what's their level of awareness about the topic, the proposal, whatever your conversation is, what do they know, what don't they know, gaps in their knowledge, what's their level of anxiety or trust, and as I just mentioned, what's been their experience with participation in the past. And so there may be some trust building that has to happen. And the more transparent you can be about your intent, the more that will pay dividends for you in that way. And then knowing what tools are available to you. You're all being trained with this particular method. There are other facilitation methods out there. Others of your colleagues have taken this training before. And so you can lean on each other. When you feel a little bit less confident in one aspect of facilitating or designing these conversations, you can lean on each other. And sort of as we've talked a little bit already, you aren't going to be able to design one conversation that can just be your cookie cutter for all things. And so it's important to remember who those stakeholder groups are. We talked about the difference in those conversations between whether we're talking to the staff, to the first responders, to the parents, to the kids. We're not going to be able to have one conversation that works well for each of those separate stakeholder groups. So we have to be thinking about what is our intent for those conversations and design that conversation to meet the needs of those different groups. I mentioned being mindful of your strengths, your weaknesses, leaning on your colleagues as needed, being mindful of your biases. One of the things that I have to think about when I'm facilitating a group is knowing on the front end what my own thoughts and opinions are on the topic so that I can be aware of if I'm tending to give more airtime to the people I agree with versus the people I may not agree with, and wanting to make sure that I'm leaving space for all of those voices and perspectives in the room. And again, engage your peers, lean on each other. I sometimes will have my fellow facilitators read through my questions that I write for a conversation. Do these questions flow well? Do they make sense? Are they clear? Is it clear what I'm asking for, what the answer is? Oh. Any questions you have?
All right. So with that, Rural Health has actually designed their own intake form to really help collect all of that data and all of that information that you need to be able to effectively start designing your conversation or any of your facilitation sessions, starting with that rational and experiential aim, really defining what that topic is, along with all of that other information. At the very beginning, Jill opened us up with a conversation and asked, what are some of those considerations? What are those things that we need to know in order to have a productive conversation? And some of you answered with things like, you really need to know your audience and understand who's going to be there and how much time we need. And so with this intake form, that Karin is going to demonstrate for you how they use it. They have a scenario that they'll go through, but there's also space in there for really starting to develop that agenda, right? So what is your session going to look like? How much time do you need to allocate at each level and each part? And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Karin to talk to you a little bit more about the form and do the demonstration. So Karin, just let me know, do you want me to get the form pulled up right away?
That would be great. Yeah. So this form, we did not originally start with. It was kind of an ask out of champions really struggling with content like this. They knew their supervisors and CEOs, were looking to them to serve as a lead, as a community champion for conversations that they weren't always familiar with. And they needed something to provide that framework to get them started and not feel quite so overwhelmed when asked to facilitate a conversation like this. And so we put together this form. There is not a correct or an incorrect way to fill this out. We've listed at the very top, you can see a general note section as part of our prep. This is where that ask comes in, to just throw any of those comments that your supervisor or CEO or community member has when it comes to facilitating a conversation like this. It's a space to dump your thoughts so that you can start to pick through them and organize them as you're moving forward. We're going to assume that we're already clear on that for this demo and for our time today. So you can see as a topic, we've listed identifying behavioral health service needs within the community as our demo topic for today. But that could be any range of asks or conversations that you want to facilitate. I'm going to utilize my center staff, so Robbie, Precious, and Erica, to assist in this conversation. They could be community members, that could be a CEO or a supervisor, or anybody that you're wanting to engage in a conversation and kind of fill this topic out. So knowing that we need to have some conversations with our partners on, behavioral health and mental health needs within our community. Robbie, Precious, Erica, what do you think we really want to try and accomplish if we pull people together?
Maybe we would want to accomplish what is the community missing as it relates to mental health.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. What else?
I would like to know what resources are already out there and what organizations are already working on this so we could partner.
Thank you. Anything else?
Do we, is there any telehealth, mental health services available?
That's really helpful.
And does the community have access to internet to maybe utilize those telehealth? Because depending on the community.
That's wonderful. So all of the champions following along here, you can see that they're asking us questions, but when we were just learning about rational aims, we like to make those statements. So me as a facilitator, I would go back and say, I want to ensure that we understand what the community is missing as it relates to mental health. So I'm going to switch those from a question to more of a statement that I can accomplish when I'm actually holding this workshop. So instead of asking, does the community have internet access for telehealth? I would list that as a statement to say, determine whether or not the community has internet access for telehealth. That can be a question that I'm asking further in the conversation, but by the end of this workshop or this conversation, I want to know, yes or no, do they have that access? Same for the telehealth and mental health services. You can see how she switched that for us. So we want to understand what telehealth or mental health services are available. So now that we kind of know what we want to accomplish when we bring together partners, how do you think we want those partners to feel after they've participated in this conversation? Let's scroll down to our experiential aim. What do you think, Robbie, Erica, and Precious? How do we want them to feel after they've had this conversation with us?
I would want to feel confident that I know what is in the community.
I am a very solution-oriented person, so I want to know my next steps. Like, what are we doing, right?
What else?
We want to make sure that they feel included.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to feel? On this one, I personally might take that know what the next steps are and bump it up to my rational aim. So I remember that I want to have some clear next steps when I'm going to lead this conversation in the future. But I do want all of those involved in this conversation to feel confident and included as we're moving forward, because some of them might not know each other yet. So let's keep scrolling.
Yeah, I would have to say the feeling like I know next steps. If I'm going to put that in an emotion, it's going to be feeling like I accomplished something. So that's really what next steps are, right? If you have a solution-oriented person, feeling accomplished.
Thank you. Okay, let's scroll down. So when we are thinking through this conversation, remember our focus. We're looking at maternal health and some of those needs in our community. Who do you think some of those partners are that we should invite?
Mental health providers.
I would say schools for youth and smaller children.
Yeah, schools usually have a social worker, and they usually have like somebody who oversees the social workers. So that would be who we'd want to reach out to, not necessarily just like, schools, but also most communities have somebody who coordinates their crisis line, the 988 line, and mental health resource officers for the police department.
Perfect. We could go on and on because we know that everybody has a hand in supporting mental health. But when we're thinking through total invitees, what do you think is kind of the number that, we could still effectively facilitate this conversation? Is because we've got a lot that want to participate. If it's just me leading it, how many partners. And this
I
is
would
just
for
facility
8 to 10.
here. How many?
I would do 8 to 10 for one person.
That's a great group to hear all voices. I really like
And
that.
that's an oddly mental health number as well for group therapy.
If I were to have a larger number there, just because everybody wants to participate, Precious, I might tag you to help facilitate with me, okay?
Okay.
Let's keep scrolling. Date and time. What makes sense for that list of partners to get together? Could we accomplish this over a lunch break? Does this need to be at the end of a workday? What are your thoughts?
I think over a lunch break, maybe in the next about 2 weeks would give us enough time to reach out to people.
Okay.
If we're gonna do lunch, we should provide lunch though.
That would be very nice of us to do. Yes.
Yeah. And it would also get people to show up as well. Like if they're gonna have to take their lunch break.
So when I say lunch break, I'm thinking about an hour. Does that sound right with everybody?
I think an hour and a half at the latest.
Okay. Is there a common location that might be ideal for this conversation? Or should it be virtual? I know we talked about providing food, but maybe if some of our partners have to travel, we consider that.
I think that would depend on the community. Like if you have a community that's super spread out, I think that virtual would be a nice option. Although I do know that small towns, especially in the Delta, really like to do things in person. And usually there's a community center or a library, or oddly enough, like my town, the Chamber of Commerce offers their meeting room to groups like this. But again, that's community dependent. So knowing where people meet in your community
is key. Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thanks for your thoughts. Let's keep going a little bit further. So what we've just talked about there at the top, you can easily copy and paste. So the rational aim from above is our purpose, the audience, the list of participants that we wanted to put, again, copy and paste, and that date and time. Once you have confirmed that, we threw out a couple different ideas that might need to be looked into further, especially for the dates that we want in the next 2 weeks. But once those are confirmed, all of that information can be used here at the top of this document. Then we have somewhat of a sample agenda, and they're putting some stuff in here, so give it a moment. But we have the different parts of an agenda listed to kind of help guide your use of time. So when we get started in Hue Life conversations like we did today, we started with some icebreakers and getting to know people, testing out technology, introducing ourselves, all those types of things. Setting the stage is really giving everybody a common understanding of the topic that we're going to be discussing, which is mental and behavioral health, and some of those resources and telehealth services. We might want to set the stage. What have we heard about that in the past? Why are we bringing people together? Being very intentional and clear in that section. The community conversation is kind of the placeholder term that we use for the focus conversation. So that set of questions that are very directional and intentional, we put that there, which is why you also see 45 minutes, and then report out, closing, debrief, whatever you want to call that, really ties to Precious feeling like she's accomplished something, that she knows the next steps. And for each of those sections, we can outline a rational and experiential aim, just like we have a large one for the very beginning. So if we're wanting to take an experiential aim, like ensuring everybody feels included, we don't want to save that to the last 20 minutes of our time together. We want to bump that to the top where we're getting started. And icebreakers are a great way that we can pull people together and make them feel included and speaking aloud. What might be a rational aim for getting started? And I didn't prepare our center staff for this question, but what do you think?
Would the rational aim be creating icebreakers to open the room up?
Yeah. it's a very clear step to ensure that we can accomplish it. It's part of the purpose. It's not an afterthought in our work together. How about setting the stage?
Would setting the stage be going over like the objectives?
Yep. We can share the objectives. We can review any prior knowledge that we've heard about mental health in the past and why we're bringing people together. We can be clear about how we're going to be using our time. I'm going to jump down to the community conversation because this really ties to some of those rational aims that we had at the very beginning you guys brought forward. So what might be a rational aim for this focused conversation period? What did we want from our participants? Do you want to scroll back up and we can look at those?
So we could talk about like knowing what mental health resources are available in the community. We can talk about telehealth, access to services, things like that.
Absolutely. So really 1, 2, 3, 4, those first 4 lines, we could all really incorporate into different questions in that community conversation. Sorry, Precious.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that it's really important in this type of conversation. You have all of these partners to figure out where the holes in service are, right? Because everyone that's coming there is providing a service. And so making sure that we all understand what they provide and then sort of discovering where the holes in service for the community are. And yeah, so it may be what, do we need new services? Are there services that we have that can fill those holes? That type of stuff. That would be.
And what would be the rational aim for report out then? Or debrief or closing, however we want to term that.
So debrief or report out will be to repeat the things that we accomplished today, discuss next steps, and that's it.
Yeah. So I know I'm kind of up on time, Jill, but this is how we kind of fill this out. Then when we're actually writing our thoughts down, we can kind of check the box. Did I accomplish the aim that I set out to do? Am I ensuring that people feel included? And we can do that for each of our sections. We listed those areas in yellow because that might not be the terminology or the timing of any conversation that you're going to be leading, but this is a realistic conversation that you may have, especially for mental health resources, which are a little bit complicated in some of the rural communities that we work with. If you see this guide from other champions that have participated in this training in the past, it is longer than what we are going to demo today because we are also building your strength up to learn how to write facilitations in the future, and utilizing these focused conversations is really the foundation moving forward. But this is a great place to get started if your CEO or supervisor says, hey, can you lead a conversation about mental health resources, something that you are not an expert in? This still allows you to lead an effective meeting. So Jill, do we want to open it up for questions or do we want to give it a try in our breakout rooms?
Well, I would always say, let's give them a chance to ask any questions before we throw them in there. Karen did a great job of laying that out, kind of fast and furious, and they did a good job role playing. And I don't know if you all could feel it, but as Karen was going through this conversation, right? Then you could really kind of feel the momentum. And I don't know how much prep work you did with your staff, but you could feel like this felt like a real conversation, like they were engaging, even though this is a simulation. So I think that speaks to the power of this tool, this framework. And as Karen said, it's a great checklist, right? Once you have your conversation crafted, then you go back and you say, did I ask questions, like she said, that address this objective? Did I ask questions that help them move from one level to another? So it's something you use beforehand to prep. It's something you'll have on hand as you're leading the conversation. So these are your cheat notes. This is your script. So yeah, no, I think you did a nice job of covering all the bases, Karen.
Thank you. I have a question in the chat box that says to ask for volunteers for next steps before they leave the meeting. Ideally, our focus conversation and that 45-minute community conversation has a decisional level question where we're getting that before we do that debrief and closing. So when I debrief and close it, I might just say, can I have somebody summarize what we've accomplished today? So it's not a rehashing of everything that we've trying to figure out who does what. It's really a quick summary that kind of wraps it all in a nice bow. And that's me. Jill, you might have other thoughts.
Well, again, goes back to what your intention is. What is the purpose? So if there is a reason at that decisional level to know who's doing what by when, then you're going to do a go round and you're going to capture that information. So Leah, it's a this and, you know, again, going back to what your rational experiential aim is. So, you know, that gets to what you capture, what you don't capture. And so, yeah, I think
volunteers,
go ahead.
Your topic, you may not have to have volunteers. Your decisional might be, we're just meeting again in 2 weeks and you know, at 1 o'clock, that might be how you're leaving the meeting, or it might be we're missing some faces and key partners. So, you know, each one of us is going to outreach to somebody personally so they can come to the next one.
Or it may also be each one of us are going to bring something next time to discuss, you know, further.
And sometimes it's just simply confirming that there's a shared understanding.
Yep.
You know, what do we want them to know, understand, or decide? And so, yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, Karen, but and maybe I missed it, but when it says like speaker and resources here, the idea for today is to start to really get comfortable with those rational and experiential aims, but just know during your planning that these are other things for you to consider as you are doing these intake, right? So if you are working with a co-facilitator, here's your opportunity to really divvy up those responsibilities. Who will take on setting, you know, the stage? Who's going to take on leading us in the, you know, main part of the conversation? So decide on those different roles between your facilitation team. And then when it comes to resources, you know, it might be if you are reviewing, there might be some helpful things that you can pull in at that O level that you want to share. There might be some statistics or data. So how are you going to present that? Are you going to have a PowerPoint presentation at the beginning of your session where you're going to spend, you know, 5 minutes sharing some givens and statistics and reports, maybe survey results in that, you know, getting started and setting the stage phase? Or is it that you want to have printed handouts for people? What is those, you know, what are those resources? How do you think the best way to present that information is going to be? As well as, you know, are you doing this virtually or online? Do you need to have a producer on hand? Do you need access? Maybe you're in a room, maybe you need access to AV equipment because you do want to share some sort of PowerPoint. So think about, what do you need for technology? What do you need for handouts? Do you need name tags for people? Table tent conversation. So all of those types of things need to be considered as you go into your planning as well. So when you think about those questions, if that, you know, rational aim for setting the stage is to really understand the criteria, you know, that we're going to be, you know, conversing about, then they might need some sort of handouts to really help us get that group to that end. So
thank you.
Anyways.
And I think that goes through that preparation, right? So we've been doing this for a long time. Karen, you've been doing this for a long time. You still do this, right?
Every single time.
Right. And so I don't want you to think this is, oh, this just giving you a taste of what it's like. This is a tool that we use religiously. So when I script out a session, when I script out a training, it's got the timing, it's got the rational experiential aim, it's got the script. I will write out my script of everything I'm going to say. Now, I don't sit there and read it, but I've captured all my thoughts, my highlights, the points I need to make in that script, and those speaker resources, right? Do I need markers? Like Megan said, do I need a sticky wall? Do I need markers? Is it virtual? Do I have my links prepared? And I will keep everything in a document, in this scripted document, so that it's all right there. You can share it with your co-facilitator. So it is, and we use a term that says, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. And I can assure you 100% that the more work you put in on the front end, preparing for these conversations, preparing for these sessions and your community engagement, the more work you put in ahead of time, the better it's going to be. And we prepare, we'll spend 2 hours for every hour we're in front of somebody. So this is not something we take lightly. And so we really want to stress, this is a significant part of the process.
Yeah. One thing that we, as a Hugh Life team would say when looking at our own scripts and forms like this, how much detail do we really need? I have a clear understanding of it. Well, put together your scripts and your plan and your outline with the mindset of, what if something came up for you and you had an emergency? Could somebody else pick up your script and be able to step in and deliver on your behalf? It should be that well thought out and that thorough, so that somebody at a moment's notice could step in.
And then also too, what if you have to adjust your time? So I travel a lot in the Mississippi Delta. We don't always start exactly at the time that the judge. So where do you have space, or where could you create space as the facilitation is happening that you could shorten a little bit if needed to? So by thinking through the timing, by writing out your words, this is going to take longer than I maybe originally planned. I need to shorten this, or I need to shorten it somewhere else to ensure that it fits in that original time frame that we gave ourselves.
Yeah, I've mentioned before that I always have a list of more questions than I think I'm going to need. And quite often, as I have my script in front of me, I will put in bold what's the sort of bare minimum questions I'm going to ask at each level. And so if I run short on time, I know the essential questions that I want to make sure that I hit at each level. If I've got the luxury of time, I can ask most of those questions, but then at least I've already got my cheat sheet figured out ahead of time, so that if I run short on time, I know these are the questions that I'm going to ask, and I don't have to figure that out on the fly.
All right, so, oops. I just dropped into chat. I know I was trying to edit this quick and I hit enter anyways, but it's okay. So we're going to have you get into breakout rooms and practice actually working through this intake form. So you'll have 4 groups and 4 different topics. So you can find your name with your assigned group. So Nikki and Leah, you've got your link right there. And you will be working through a scenario of developing the scope and services for a new wellness center. Okay. Group number 2, your topic is identifying the impact of substance misuse disorder diagnosis for pregnant and nursing mothers in rural areas. You've got your link there, and that will be Tara and Helena and Precious. We've got you joining that group as well. And Erica, you're going to be joining group number 1. Group number 3, exploring culture and generational accessibility when developing a community resource guide. You've got your link, and that will be Tabitha, Kelly, Grayson, and Jamie. And then finally, developing a diabetes prevention and awareness fair. There's a link there, and Victoria is not here, so Kelsey and Stacy, you'll be working on that scenario. So if you click on your link, you should have a blank form that just has your topic in it, and everything else you can work through. Get as far as you can if you can get down to that agenda and start, kind of thinking through that. But we'd like for you to really kind of touch each part of this intake form so you can start to get a feel for that. Don't spend too much time at the very beginning because we're going to give you about 30 minutes in your breakout rooms to work through the form. So don't spend 25 on your rational and experiential aim. Okay, so you saw the pace that Karin led the rest of the group through. Now they made it through in about 10 minutes, so you've got a little more time than that, but keep pushing through so that you can try and at least touch every section before we call you back. With that being said, can everyone access their links? What questions do you have? Kelsey, it looks like you came off mute for a second there. Did you have a question?
Is there any way someone from the center can share what they did just so we can look at it while we're working?
Yeah, I can drop the link for that into the chat here so you can pull that up and access it as well. Is that what you're asking?
Is everybody able to access the links before we throw you into breakout rooms?
Yes.
Anybody not able? Let me make it. Is there anybody who's not able to access the link for your group?
Add to before you jump into the breakout room. You don't have to do this perfect, so don't get stuck at any place. Keep it moving, and sometimes new ideas come up as you process through this. So you can hop back up to the top if a new thought comes. Don't get stuck there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Kelsey, I put the link for the demo that Karin just led through with the staff in the chat as well. So if you want to be able to open that and reference it, then you certainly can.
And
All
you are role playing, right? So make
Yes.
it, don't feel like you have to have the exact answers. This is, Karin said, this is not perfection. This is practice. Make it up, play your role, and try to have some fun with it.
All right. Let's get these rooms open.
Question?
All right, I think we have everyone back here, so we don't have time to do a full report out from everyone. Let's just center staff, do you think it would be helpful just to do a quick look at what each group did? Yeah, all right, so let me just let's start with group 1. So you had developing a scope of services for a new wellness center. So why don't you just let's see here. Scroll well, let's just take a look at your rational and experiential aim. So what did you determine your rational aim for this conversation would be? Who was in this group?
I was Nikki and Leah.
All right. Just share your rational aim.
Leah or?
I would say that our rational aim was to determine the target population that we were designing this community wellness center for, including the services, the scope of services that we were offered at the wellness center.
All right, so rational aim was really determining that target population along with activities that were determine what activities are already being offered, as well as, you know, what's missing and, you know, what is needed. Okay. All right, and how about your experiential aim? How were you hoping that participants will feel as a result of this conversation?
Hoping that participants will feel that their health matters, hoping that they will feel like they are accomplished, that their voices are heard. They will feel excited about the resources that are available, as well as those that are coming, that will be new to the community. And we were hoping that they will feel enthused in the activities that are being offered.
All right. So feeling, accomplished, valued, heard, some enthusiasm and excitement as they walk away. So as you move into developing that conversation itself and that facilitation experience, you'll want to make sure that you're not only making sure that you're taking care of asking these questions, identifying and determining certain things, but that this is the excitement and enthusiasm that they're going to feel walking away. Nice job. So where did you feel like it was really easy to move through this, and what was really difficult?
I guess it was difficult just knowing what goes where. I guess this was our first time utilizing it. And so we were like, okay, well, what do we need to put here? And instead of having those questions, making the statements. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing out. Good job to this group. Let's move on to group number 2. So let's see here. This group had identifying the impact of substance misuse disorder diagnosis for pregnant and nursing mothers in rural areas. And what was your rational aim? So this is Tara, Helena, Precious.
I will run through it unless Helena or Tara, either one of you want to jump in and do it. Go for it. Do it.
So our rational aim that we had was just, making sure that the families feel unified and healthy, keeping them unified and healthy, I'm sorry, and making sure the child's safe. And then just identifying the legal issues that were, that respecting those as far as what supports can be added to the process, and then what we currently have available in the community. And then, just making sure that during all that process that everybody's family is protected and respected. So it's kind of a touchy subject when you got, mothers and babies involved. So
Yeah, thank you for that. And if you wanted to rephrase any of these and start thinking about that language that Karen was sharing before into these statements, this could be like they need to know the goal of keeping the family and unified and healthy. They need to know, let's see here, understand how things are identified, understand next steps, what happens once they're identified, understand what legal issues are involved, right? They need to decide know and understand what community supports are currently in place, and decide what that privacy protocol, is moving forward. So that's kind of a way to rephrase some of those. And how about your experiential aim?
Just obviously making sure everybody's voice was heard in the room and valued, and that they felt that they could make a difference by coming together, jointly for this effort, and then just having the unity of shared goals, and then just making sure that everybody, just the feeling of knowing that you're doing the right thing for the mother and the baby.
All right, very good. How about this group? Where did you feel, maybe this was really easy, or where did you feel that you struggled working through it a bit?
I think it was just hard in this, struggled in this, just dealing with the mother and the baby and wanting to keep them unified, but then also knowing that there's a lot of legality to it as well, with, you know, it being substance abuse involved in that, and knowing that that every case was different. And so it's really hard to come up with just one unified solution. And so I think that made it more difficult.
Yeah.
Because of the sensitivity of the subject.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. And grab, and also I see it was difficult determining what kind of wellness facility we were talking about. Yeah. And I would just say with a lot of those things, you will have conversations with, you know, maybe with the facility, with whoever your contact is, where you have that opportunity to ask all of those, you know, really specific questions that can help you narrow down your focus a little bit more, right? And so you're saying, well, it's hard to really determine if we don't know, you know, this, or this. So who do you need to ask? Who could provide some of that additional context and those givens to you? And so that might be part of that general spot, right? You've got your general note. So start thinking through what are questions that we need to ask to help us feel prepared, right? Is it too general right now? Where, you know, what specifics do we need before we can really move into this planning process and capture all of those questions and do that homework and that research before going into your design?
Again, this also helps us kind of check ourselves that we're not trying to accomplish too much. So if you're developing a ton of rational and experiential aims and you've given yourself an hour, that needs kind of like a heads up to you as a facilitator thinking through these, that you might be trying to accomplish a little bit too much. And maybe you want to break it out into 2 sections or 2 sessions, 2 lunches, rather than just trying to knock it all out in one. So if you were unclear of this in a real life scenario, you might need to take a step back and do more of that first meeting as your general notes and brainstorming before you then can move forward. So that's another option. You don't have to try and figure everything out in an hour.
Yeah, sometimes we will do a session just to figure out, you know, what do we need to know, understand, or decide, right? Let's have a conversation to start identifying what are the questions that we should be asking so that we can narrow it down. All right, group 3, exploring cultural and generational accessibility when developing a community resource guide. So let's hear from this group. What was your rational aim? And I think, was this Tabitha, Kelly, Grayson, and Jamie?
Okay, the rationale aim that we came up with was, what concerns do we have with the different age, cultural background, generational background, accessibility in this area? What community partners can bridge the gap with the different generations, cultures in our areas, and accessibility to the wellness center, as well as how will you connect with the generational age difference?
Yeah, and so here, like this, you almost started moving into the questions specifically that you would ask in your conversation itself. So your rational aim might be identify concerns that we have, right? Identify different community partners and what they can do to help bridge gaps. Brainstorm ways to connect with generational age differences, right? And so really not getting super specific in like what question we're actually going to be asking them, but what is that goal that asking these questions and having this conversation is going to get us to, right? Is it to do some brainstorming? Is it to understand something? Is it to, you know, start identifying things? And then your experiential aim.
We want to make sure that everyone is included regardless of age, cultural background, accessibility, or generational background. And participants will recognize that their viewpoints are valued.
Yeah, excellent job. Again, here you really took the time to identify that as a result of this conversation, how do you want people to walk away feeling? So, yep, you want them to feel valued. We want them to feel included. So, awesome. And then finally, and for that group, before we move on to our fourth one, just where did you maybe have a lot of success and feel like, oh yeah, this was really easy, or what did you kind of struggle through when working on that?
Well, you guys want to take this question? Well, with me is that I was with a group of people who was familiar with this, so it was quite easy because they have guided me through it. So that's on my viewpoint.
I think we did a good job with it. We had some issues sometimes explaining the experimental aim kind of thing, but we got through it. And the rational part was easy because we just kind of transferred it down from the brainstorming idea.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then group number 4, developing a diabetes prevention awareness fair. So we've got Kelsey and Stacy. What was your rational aim?
We talked about what concerns does the community have about developing or diabetes prevention and awareness. We talked about displaying information about prevention and awareness, decide what resources they already have access to, and that was based off the community, and then decide what resources that we already have to provide to them for the fair. And then, of course, the last one, know what the next steps are and how they can use those resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Identify concerns that the community has. Share information around prevention. Decide what resources we have and what the next steps are. And identify the resources that the community already has access to, right? Those are all tangible goals, right, that we want to identify. And as a result of this conversation, your experiential aim is what?
We want them to make them feel like they make a difference in whoever that they're dealing with that has diabetes. Make them feel like they can trust the knowledge that we are sharing, and then make sure everyone feels confident in the information.
Yep. Feeling like they made a difference, feel trust, feel confident, all things from an experience standpoint that we want them to walk away feeling. Great job. How about for the two of you, where did you feel maybe this was a bit of a struggle or a challenge, or where did you feel like, hey, we got it?
I think we worked well together, but I think ours was a little different because we were trying to develop a fair. So I guess that's kind of where I struggled a little bit, just trying to come up with the questions and the feelings. But we worked like very well. We talked through everything. So I thought we did good.
Yeah.
I just feel like there was so much information that we could have provided. It was kind of hard to limit those. But like y'all said, maybe, splitting it into a whole day thing or 2 different fairs or something like that could have helped. And then another thing that I found difficult was at the very end, developing the agenda and breaking it down into the 4 stages of that was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, the more you work with this tool, the more that you practice it, the more different scenarios and conversations that you plan, the easier that it's going to become. I think just in general, overall, what is important to remember with the rational and experiential aims is that the rational aim is really the goal. What is it that you are trying to accomplish, right? So if you think of it instead of terms of rational and experiential, think of it as goal and experience, right? What is it that we want to accomplish here today? And how are we going to be different as a result? What is the experience that we're going to have? So it's going to take more practice. It's going to take more time really diving into it. So we understand this is one of the more difficult pieces for people to really wrap their heads around. And you all did a really fantastic job as this being your first go around. So just keep on pushing that through and think about just other scenarios that you have in your life, right? Whether it's professionally or personally, and just think to yourself, you know, what is my rational aim here, my goal here, and what is my experiential, so that it becomes second nature to you. So the experiential aim is often one that is really overlooked by people because we don't think of that as important when it comes to our overall design, especially in conversations, right? Like, no, we've got our objectives. It's going to be easy to design a conversation around that to meet those goals, but making sure that we're taking the time to create that environment and still tie in some questions that will help with that overall experience as well. So great first run at it, absolutely outstanding, and then just keep on keep practicing. All right, with that, we will just pause for a minute before we move into our closing kind of wrap up and conversation, and pause and see, do you have any questions or comments at all about rational experiential aim or the intake form? All right, well, not hearing any. If you have any that come up, right, especially as you're designing your community connect events and you're getting into this form, you have a whole bunch of people who are more than happy to answer your questions. So please reach out if any of those come up. And I know that you have Q&A sessions that you participate in after these. So write those questions down and bring them with you so that you can continue to grow in this area. With that, is it Travis? Are you going to just do a quick wrap up before we hand it back to the staff?
Sure, will do. All right, we'll just do a quick debrief here. What's one part of today's session that sticks out to you, that you remember? Anybody can answer this.
I really like the explanation of the rational and the experimental, different viewpoints of that, and just giving us the understanding of the different things we should ask during those, and just another tool to help us through those conversations. So it's very much appreciated.
Thank you. Somebody else, what's one thing from today that you remember that jumped out to you?
I would agree with Helena, just knowing the difference between the two and what questions belong where.
Yeah, thank you. One more example from somebody.
It's very important to consider all stakeholders. So whatever topic we're talking about, we have to make sure that all stakeholders are, I guess, has some kind of connection to that subject area.
Yeah, thank you. Where are you feeling pretty confident after today's session? Where are you feeling confident?
Determining an audience.
Brainstorming and coming up with the right question and putting them in the right place.
So just going into a meeting unprepared, being prepared and knowing what you want to achieve from that meeting. So, and then just, and with not only achieving, but taking everybody's feelings into effect, into account as well.
Yeah. Where do you still need a little bit more practice?
I would say the layout of the agenda, just trying to figure out all the information that you have, like where to put that within the agenda.
Where do you still need more practice?
I agree with her. Just make sure you're putting the right question on the right information on the right topic.
What's one way that you're going to continue to practice building your skills so that this doesn't just sit on the shelf, or that these skills don't get rusty for you? What's one thing you can do to continue building your skills?
I think the next
Trying
time.
to, oh,
So go ahead.
trying to apply them like in meetings, like actually taking charge and being that facilitator or helping plan the meeting. I guess I'm not normally one that goes out of my comfort zone to speak up or anything, so just applying that and giving them the resources that I have to better the meeting.
I guess when we out in the community, talking with community partners, stakeholders, and also residents of the community, to know what questions to ask and how to address the questions that is being asked by the community partners as well as the residents of the community.
Thank you. Let's hear one more example. What's one way you're going to continue to practice these skills?
Mock surveys. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say to kind of use the resources that we have, like that intake form, like when you're preparing for a meeting, to like go back to that, because everything that y'all offer helps us.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. Let's come back to Nikki. Go ahead and share what you were going to share, Nikki.
Oh, just creating like mock surveys with people that you're comfortable with. And that way you'll be, you're not afraid to like mess up or anything. And you'll be, the more you practice, what they say, practice makes perfect. And so the more you practice, the more comfortable you will become.
Yeah, thank you. We'll do one final go around. I'm going to drop the question in the chat to give you a little bit of time to think. We've used this one before. I came here with blank. I'm leaving with blank. And whenever somebody's ready, they can go ahead and answer, and then we'll pass on to somebody else from there. So I'll give you a little time to think, and then whoever is ready can jump in.
I came here with a little uncertainty, and I'm leaving with more confidence.
Thank you, Stacy. Who do you want to pass to?
Nikki.
I came here with a little understanding of how to navigate meetings, and I'm leaving with a better understanding of how to navigate meetings.
Thank you. Go ahead and pass to somebody, Nikki.
I'll pass it to Leah.
Sorry, my partner's still on the phone. I came here with questions and am leaving with answers. And I will pass it to Tabitha.
Thank you.
Okay. I came today with uncertainty, and I'm leaving today with confidence.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass to?
Kelsey.
I came here today with little confidence and knowledge of how to facilitate a meeting, and I'm leaving with more confidence and more knowledge of that. I know what questions to ask and how to facilitate that. And I will pass it to Kelly.
Thank you.
I came here today with uncertainty of rational questions and how to ask them, and I'm leaving with a better understanding of that.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass to, Kelly?
I will pass to Tara.
I came here not knowing what to expect, but I'm leaving here feeling a little bit better about the questions, how to put them in the right order and get a little more understanding of what to do when it comes time, or you can do it at any meeting or anywhere. So a little more practice.
Thank you.
And I don't know who's left.
I think
Mm,
Erica, Helena, Grayson.
Elena.
Okay.
Did you say me?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I thought that's what you said. So I came here with very little to no knowledge on the whole rational and experiential aims in putting a meeting together, and I'm leaving with the knowledge of how to utilize those for a productive meeting. And I'll pass it to Stacy. Stacy, do it. Yeah.
Yes, we've got Erica and Grayson, I think, left.
Oh, okay, Grayson.
I came in with a basic understanding, but left with a much greater understanding of how to proceed through this. And I'll pass it to Erica.
Thank you.
I came here with minimal experience with rational and experiential aim, and I'm leaving with more knowledge in those. And I'll pass it to Precious.
I would say I came with a little bit of knowledge about this, but I'm leaving with more understanding about experiential aim. And I will pass it to, I'm trying to see, did we get all of our champions? Okay, I'll pass it over to Karen.
Thanks. I came here with surprise. This was supposed to be a training provided by Ambrosia this morning. So a lot of your faces are brand new for me, and it's been wonderful to interact with you guys. I'm leaving with excitement and hope that you're going to use this tool. And can I throw in one more thing? I know sometimes when we present information that seems complex, it can feel daunting, like a test or like a test form that you have to fill out. We still share all of these types of intake forms and facilitations with each other. It's not like I am being graded or scored on how well I filled this form out. I may be missing something and just need another perspective. And so as you guys start to get to know each other more, utilize each other's skill sets and perspectives. I think they bring such value, especially the more diversity that you have looking at some of your thoughts. It ensures that you're hearing all voices, and that your facilitations and your questions are going to be even more, in tune with the conversations that you're going to be having. So I just want to throw in one example we had was a champion in 2019 who is a mom of a couple children with special needs. And she finished up this training. She took the form, she wrote up a conversation that she wanted to have with other moms in her community to create an awareness of some services and to kind of figure out how they could be making an impact with other moms and children in their community for special needs, and had nothing to do with this program at all. But she said she looked like the absolute lead in this space because she asked the right questions and she was bold enough to pull people together for a conversation that had never been had. And so it may not have occurred perfectly the first time she did this, but nobody knew. They just appreciated that she made the effort. So I really hope that you guys remember that moving forward. Utilize us as well. We're a resource and we love to see what you guys are working on the side too. So thanks for letting me join you.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, this is the intake form is a tool that is designed to help you not to confuse you. So just use it as a general guide. And just as long as you keep asking those questions, you know, then you should be able to come up with some really amazing plans that will hopefully make some incredible impact on the work that you are doing. So with that, Robbie, I think you've got a poll and a couple of closing comments for us.
No poll today. That will be at the end of Thursday.
Oh, all right.
But yes, Leah, I can send out a copy of those documents that you had worked on, and then I can send a clean copy as well. So I'll do that today, hopefully by the end of the day. Otherwise, all I have is if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything, or you just want to kind of run through this again, you can always shoot any one of us on the team an email, or you can send an email to me and I can triage you to anyone else on the team. I am happy to do that. And I will see y'all bright, early, and squirrely on Thursday morning at 9. That's all I have.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Thanks.